Hello and welcome to Films for the Very First Time. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It's going good. And every week, or every other week, we discuss a movie or TV show that the other one has not seen. Last week, we discussed Face Off, which I had never seen, but was a classic that Casey had seen countless times. This week, as we get ready for Christmas, as Christmas is only a few weeks away now from when this episode releases, we're discussing the greatest Christmas movie of all time. We're talking Jingle All The Way,
Whoa,
the
whoa, 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 whoa.
1996,
Slow roll on that a little bit for now.
the 1996 cult classic. I don't know, like it didn't make as much money as some of these other movies, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sinbad, Phil Hartman, Rita Wilson, Jim Belushi, um, Jake Lloyd, right, as the kid, Martin Mull. Like we have some pretty big names in here. In this Phil Morris even makes an appearance as one of the news guys later on. Chris Parnell is in this,
Yeah,
shockingly.
I so
Uh,
I saw the name Jake Lloyd, and I'm like, man, that name is really familiar. And I had to look him up, and I'm like, oh man, that's young Anakin Skywalker.
yeah,
And then
Little Annie.
as little Annie, yeah, damn Jar Jar. And then as I'm watching, I'm looking, and I'm like, dude, is that Chris Parnell like 30
Yep.
years ago? And that this is literally his first movie role. And
Yeah.
then there, there's there's also a wrestler in here.
Oh, really?
Yes, the Giant Santa
Oh,
is
okay.
is a wrestler whose real name is Paul White. He goes by the name of Big Show, or he was the Giant in WCW at the time this came out. Uh,
Wow.
Other
Okay.
people might know him better as Captain Insano from The Water Boy.
Okay. So this
You,
was like right after he started, right? Because it says he was most known for his tenure in the WCW from 95 to 99.
yeah,
And then he went to WWF, now later WWE. But
yeah.
yeah,
Like I said, if you've
was
seen
he
The
like a
Water
big
Boy,
name? Like, do you
he
think if people
was
were watching
he
this
was
in the theater, they're like, "Oh, there he is"?
maybe well he wasn't that big. He was a big name in wrestling world. He was when he first started. He was billed as Andre the Giant's son, right? So his actual
Hmm.
legitimate first match, he beats Hulk Hogan for the world championship in WCW. Because once again, he was portrayed as Andre the Giant's son. He is a legit 7 feet tall. He had the same disease or issue that Andre had, but he had the surgery to get his pituitary gland removed or taken care
Oh,
of at a
okay.
much younger age. Plus, it was in the late 80s, early 90s. Medical advancements were a little bit
Hmm.
better than when Andre was growing up. So in Grenoble, France, in the middle of nowhere, so he really couldn't get that surgery done. But so, like a lot of times during that time, it was a really boom period for professional wrestling. So a lot of times they might throw a name on the billboard if to get wrestling fans to go see it, but they really didn't need it considering you have Arnold Schwarzenegger as the star of the movie. Um, you also have in this Vern Troyer, who was Mini Me in the Austin Power series.
Yes, I was about to say that as well. Yeah, he. And we also have Danny Woodburn as the elf. He played Mickey Abbott in Seinfeld, one of
Yes,
Kramer's friends.
yeah,
Yeah.
I recognize him too, and I'm like, is that the little guy from Seinfeld? But
Yep.
as I was watching this, I was like, man, there's some people in this movie. Also, I know this was '95. You said
96. Yep.
'96. I had not really watched anything. I knew Rita Wilson is Tom Hanks' wife.
Yes.
I had not seen anything with her in it that I can remember or recognize. So this is probably the first thing that I've seen where I've known who she was. She was quite a looker back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
So much so Phil Hartman was trying to get her.
I was like, okay, go on with your bad self there, Tom. But I was like, this is the first thing I've ever seen, like knowingly seen with her in it, where I was like, oh, that's Rita Wilson, that's Tom Hanks' wife. And I was thinking about, it, I was like, yeah, this really is.
Yeah, let's see. She is 68 now. This movie is almost 30 years ago. So she was like late 30s,
Yeah,
early
she was.
40s in this. Yeah. Um yeah, this film was directed by Bryant Levant, written by Randy Kornfield, produced by Christopher Columbus, of course. And he's popping up on these stats. I'm going to have to get like producer or writer stats, I guess, too, because Columbus was part of Goonies crew, right? Didn't he write that? Or I think he wrote Goonies or
Yeah,
produced it.
he's
And now we have him in this. And he actually rewrote the script a bit, it says here, to kind of fit in satire of commercialization of Christmas. Um, and that it's based on, of course, the real life toy sellouts of items like Cabbage Patch Kids. Not to sound like an old man, I guess, but did, does this even happen anymore when it comes to toys and stuff like that sell out like this? I know like collector items, but a lot of times you can like pre-order online. You don't have to go
okay.
to the store. Like
So
that's might be unrelatable.
as I was watching this for the first time last night, um, so this time of the year is my favorite time of the year. Starting around Halloween, you get all the spooky season, and
Right.
you
Into
get
Thanksgiving.
you get all the candy and stuff from Halloween, and you get horror movies, and then you move into Thanksgiving, you get the great food, and then I grew up in the Northeast. So I grew up in upstate New York and Massachusetts. Then the weather gets cold, and you get some snow, and then you get Christmas
Right.
time. I remember the Cabbage Patch doll craze of the '80s. Like I was actually alive for that. You might remember the Tickle Me Elmo craze of the '90s. That happened later this year. Later in the year that this movie came out. And I thought of two things. I thought one, especially now after COVID, where a lot of sales are going online and stores are getting much better about trying to do crowd control and at least acknowledging, like, hey, we only have like so much of a certain item. Like, we only have 15 of these TVs that are going to be 99 bucks or whatever it is that for doorbusters. And two, people today won't get the great. I used to love walking around the mall during,
Yeah.
times like this. Like, this was something I used to
The
really
decorations up.
enjoy. The decorations up, there'd be Christmas music playing. You're walking around the mall. Like I said, every store has their own, because they have their own little like mini billboards in there, like things, pictures in the windows and stuff, or they're airbrushing their windows, and they have their own Christmas decor kind of going, right? And just the seasonality of it and how great it was to walk around the mall doing like Christmas shopping, like, looking for stuff for the people that you love and care about. And man, like I loved doing stuff like that. I just loved even walking around the mall during this time period. Because even buying stuff for yourself, you catch some great sales and things. But yeah, everything is pretty much gone online. Like, I mean, you're starting to see your Black Friday sales and everything pop up now. Or at least out here in California, a lot of stores are not even open on Thanksgiving night anymore.
Right.
It
Right.
started during COVID, where one store said it was quote unquote because they wanted their employees to spend time with their families. No, it wasn't that. It was the fact that you didn't want a COVID outbreak to be traced back to your store and to face the possible lawsuits and the money loss that would come with that. And once one store did it, like once I think Target or somebody was the first, other stores kind of had
Yeah,
to
I
do
think
the
it was
same,
Target. Yeah.
right? And it's still
Yeah.
going out here in California. I know every place is different. Some places might have their own or might have laws where they can't stay open. Some places just might not care and be open those Thursday nights. But
I don't think any place is anymore, around me anyway. Like it's which is fine. I hate it when it started encroaching into Thanksgiving, honestly. I love my peak Black Friday times were like 2007 and 8, like when it would me and my mom would get up at like 4 a.m., get to the place when it opens at 5. Like that's actually Friday. That's actually like we had time with our families. We're ready
yeah,
to, do some Black Friday shopping, whatever. Like
I
that
mean,
that was actually, and then we would stay up and then like go to lunch afterwards and then wrap up our day at like noon and go home. Like it was more
like
fun than like 5 o'clock on Thursday.
I'm gonna be the old man here, and I can remember when it was actually just when stores were open. Like I've seen the transition of this over time, where stores open at 8, 9 o'clock on Friday morning, and that's when their stuff started. And then, like you said, as time moved on, it crept in, and then one stores would open at 7, and then other stores had to follow. And then it started creeping in earlier and earlier, where it was like 5 or 6 in the morning. Then it got. I remember the transition where it was like opening at midnight, right? Because technically it was still Friday at that point, but opening at midnight. But then that means you
Right,
had
right.
employees that were having to come in, losing part of their Thanksgiving. But then it just started creeping in earlier and earlier. And then it was like, 10 p.m. Thursday night, Black Friday sales. And then it got to be where it was before COVID, where it was like, oh man, you're having dinner at noon or 2 o'clock. Like we're starting our sales at like 3:30, and people are
Yeah.
camping out in line. Like people are
Starting
actually,
Wednesday or something.
yeah, like a day or two before. And then I remember as stores started actually just marking off areas in front of their store, was like, okay, if you're going to camp out, like you can't disturb other people who are going to be coming in and out of the store for the week prior. So they would just like tape off or like paint this little area, like you freaks are going to spend all your money here at like noon on Thursday. Like you stay within the yellow line, you know.
Yeah. No, it's like the last great year of it, I think, was probably when they would open at 9 or 10 on Thursday, like as a shopper. Cause then I was like, oh, like I had done all of my family stuff. And it's like, okay, on my way home, because we were in Towson for our last stop. On my way home, I is where I like stopped and picked up my PS4 for the first time. It was one of those like Thursday nights or whatever. But like the most fun I had would be like those 5 a.m.s because it's like you wake up early, you're like feeling like you're doing this event, you get out there, everybody's tired and crazy, um, and yet you still had all of Thursday, and it's just then they started doing like you said 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. Thursday, and it's like what? Like that's not no. Now they're kind of back on track, I feel like, right? It's like early Friday it opens for people to do their thing. Um and Thursday's back to being Thursday, Thanksgiving. So that's good. My biggest issue now is that most stuff is online. Like I was just in Target. There's no more Blu-rays in my Target. There's
Yeah,
vinyl. So I guess in like 20 years they'll have Blu-rays again.
yeah,
I don't know. But
or
like
whatever the disc of the time will be, right?
yeah.
But
So I'm upset about that. Walmart still has them, thankfully, and then I otherwise have to order on Amazon or something. Like I like going in stores and I like picking up the item the day of. I like feeling it, seeing it. It's
I
so
like
sad
going
now.
in and seeing, because
What
you may
condition
not,
it's in? I mean,
not only that, but you may not realize like you don't have a certain something until you're in the store and you're like, oh, Jingle All the Way for like 4.99, right?
right,
Like,
right.
and it might not be something you're thinking about until you see it and be like, oh, let me grab this real quick, right? And stuff
That
like
was
that.
most of my Black Friday shopping. Would be like Best Buy and Target and get
You
really good
find these great
Blu-rays for cheap.
movies or video game
Yeah.
sales, yeah, where you find stuff dirt cheap. Um, and I'm gonna go back to being my old man here. Yeah, like it just these companies start taking profits over their people, and like I said, they tried to walk it back in the name of people, but we all know it was really just because during the height of 2020 and COVID, they
Right.
were so scared of the fact of, oh man, if there's a COVID outbreak and it can be traced back to us because we don't have protocols to stop something like this, and there's no way we're going to stop a stampeding, you know,
Right, especially that type of event because it's everybody pushing and being close together and
people weren't following any rules or protocols that were set up as it was
mhm.
during that time. And now you're trying to get people to stay 6 feet away when you only have 15 or 20 TVs for like $2.99, right? Or whatever the new hottest toy is of the year, And you would figure in the 4 or 5 years, these companies would have gotten their online queues in a better shape. But maybe, but as we saw during that same time period when the PS5 and the Xbox Series X came out, like trying to get those were impossible that during that time online because it just didn't have anything set up for it. Like Sony has something better now for the PS5 Pro that they set up in Japan. That the podcast I listened to, one of them from IGN talked about that's something that they should use going forward, like for their next console launch, where it was for the PS5 Pro, and it might have been for the anniversary edition they did. They did a PS1 anniversary edition. It's like 25 years old or something. Where in order to get in line for the queue, because it was in Japan for the anniversary edition because they still had mayhem when they released it here in the States, but they only have a limited number of supply. And when Japan got their ration, they did it where you had to sign in through your PSN account. Your PSN account had to have been over a certain age old, so you couldn't have made it up that day. Like it had to have been over a certain amount of time old, and it had to have certain protocols in there where you had to have like played, so many games or something to show that like you were an actual PlayStation fan. You weren't just doing it just to try and get one of these to resell as on some resale site. And it went fine over there, but it was a week or two prior when they released it here in the States, it still went bananas because people were saying because there was only like 10,000 or something being released worldwide. When we got our allocation, people got in line, and then they couldn't add stuff into their queue, or they could add it to their shopping cart, and then when they would go to hit checkout, all of a sudden it was like they started having problems, and then they couldn't check out, and then they would refresh and allocation's gone. Or it'd be like, oh, we're placing you
Right,
back in line. The line is 4.5 hours long. And it's like, yeah,
right.
I've already waited in line, a digital line for like the last 2 hours. I'm done.
All right, so let's get into this. This movie takes place in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I got that
And
when
we
they when
have
they said Lake Minnetonka. I was like, is this movie based in Minnesota? Like, did
yeah, they
Arnie
actually
Arnie
filmed
go up
at
to
the
the Mall of
Mall of
America?
America.
Arnie went up to
Yeah. And
Minnesota. I was
actually,
like, wow.
the movie released in Mall of America first, a week ahead of time. They must have did the premiere there or something. November 16th at the Mall of America, November 22nd, 1996. Um, for the rest of the U.S. Uh, but yeah, so this movie starts off in Minneapolis, and we have, you know, it kind of opens with the Turbo Man TV show. I guess it almost looks like a Power Ranger esque TV show, and we have Jake Lloyd's character watching it. Of course, Jamie is his name. Um, and he's about to go to his karate class, and we have a workaholic mattress salesman, Howard, who is overworking here during the Christmas party. He's upstairs calling his number one customers and making deals, and he messes up here when speaking to his wife and is in like, I don't know,
He's in
robo
sales mode.
mode here with
He's
yeah,
in sales mode. Okay, so
you're my
two
number
things.
one customer.
Three things. One, the intro kind of confused me because I saw the commercial and I was like, remember when we talked before about the Family Guy thing, where you keep like you can't tell when the movie's starting, or like
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
different studio productions. I was like, this kind of fit into that perfectly. Um, I never watched. I was immediately like, man, this I'm getting Power Ranger vibes off it, and obviously it was meant
Mm-hmm.
as a homage to Power Rangers or whatever. I never watched Power Rangers as a kid. I was a little past that age by the time Power Rangers come out. It just wasn't for me. And then
Yeah.
so I looked it up. I don't think they ever said what Arnie sold during the movie, or I can't recall if they said what he was selling.
I don't know either.
And
Wikipedia says mattress, so
yeah, IMDb said the same
I'm going
thing.
off of.
But IMDb said the same thing when I was, looking it up last night, and I was like, okay, like they didn't say what he was selling, and I was like, why didn't he? He's obviously a fairly big salesman. Like, why didn't he make some calls to some of his buddies where he's selling, like, you know, I think there could have been better ways to go about him getting this damn doll, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a terrible dad. At the beginning of this movie,
I wouldn't say a
9-year-old
terrible
son.
dad. I mean, you're obviously
He's
closer to
always
that than I
late
am.
to the important.
As
He's always late to all the important stuff. He misses everything apparently, except for the blue belt or something. Right? There was the one belt he saw him get.
okay,
Um,
so I I I will say, look, it's not cool to miss all your kids stuff, right? Like, not I'm not gonna
mhm.
say that. And obviously, this hits a little closer to home for you as a new dad. So I acknowledge, like, I may be talking out of school here, someone who doesn't have kids. But I will say, I don't know if Rita Wilson's character works. They don't really say in this movie if she's a homemaker,
Yeah, I don't think she
or
does. I don't think
if
she
she
does.
has like a career of her own, right? Not like, can't say, and not knocking that either way. Like, that's a choice that each family makes. Like, that's their own personal choice. So I'm not knocking that. It's one thing. I get it. He could have been a better dad. I wouldn't say he was a bad dad.
Mhm,
Could have been a
mhm.
better dad, but it didn't really look like they were complaining with that house and the standard of living that they had. That he was able to keep them in. Um,
Mhm.
Even in the mid to late '90s, there was a mattress salesman in Minnesota. Like, the neighborhood that it looked like they lived in, the standard of living they had looked to be pretty good. Looked to be like in the six figure, you know, multiple
Yeah,
six
probably.
figure range. So, like, yes, once again, he needs to be there for his children, but especially if he is the only one working and he's providing that kind of lifestyle for his family. Like, there's got to be some trade offs there, and you can't really knock them if you're enjoying that big of a standard of living. Like, could he make some improvements? Yes, but
Mhm.
you know, you got to look at what you got and realize, like, okay, if he's going to start peering at all these things, some of that's going to take a blow.
So we have this he's trying to rush, right? To the karate class.
You're not
And
going to miss.
he gets pulled over by the cop who will frequently appear throughout this story here. And um it causes him to miss it. I mean, he was probably going to miss it anyway, but it caused him to be so late. Like, they're back home
Okay, so
by
one,
the time he gets there.
I got the vibes I got from this cop are, I'm 2 days away from retirement, and like, he's that guy who gets killed in like a Lethal Weapon movie, who's a couple days away from retirement, right?
Yeah.
Like, with everything that happened to him, like he needs to make sure his affairs are in order. Two, Arnie, buddy, when you pull up in the school parking lot or the community center parking lot, and
And
there's
there's no
no
car.
other cars in the parking lot, don't try and rush in like you're gonna be there to see. Like, come on, like, I get it. You
Yeah.
still got to maybe go up there to see, because there's a chance that might still be going on. But when you get to the parking
It's one of
lot,
those where you're like, it's one of those where you're walking up slowly to the door and the lights are off and you're like, is this gonna be locked? Like, have you done that? You go up to a building and you're like slowly trying to open the door and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's locked. Like, I can't get in there.
Not only that, it looked like honestly the only car that would be there would be like the janitors who are cleaning up.
Right, right.
Like they're the only people there, so there might be like 3 cars in the parking lot. I think we only saw like one dude on the inside, but like
Yes.
there's only gonna be a couple cars in the parking lot. Like, Arnie, come on, like don't go running in there like your dad of the year. Like you saw as soon as you pulled into that parking lot. Oh, this is over. Like there's nobody here.
Yeah, at that point you're just like, I don't know, trying to make it look good, I guess, but nobody's there to watch it. So here's the thing. If I'm looking at 1996, Christmas is on the 25th, which is Wednesday. Christmas Eve is Tuesday. And I'm guessing this is the day before Christmas Eve because he talks to Jamie about what he really wants, and then the next day has to go out to buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So this is
that
over
would have
like a
been Monday the
72-hour
23rd.
period. This is over like a 72-hour period.
Yeah, so it looks like this karate class is on the 23rd, which is just poor planning, by the way. Doing one right before Christmas Eve. I feel like that's a little
Well,
tough. People leaving for holidays and all that, but yeah.
maybe, but I would say honestly that might be the best time. You got to think. Okay, so if I think back to during that time period or when I was a kid, your Christmas break probably would have started like the Thursday or Friday before, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. School vacations now are so weird. Like I talk to people on my mail route with kids, especially out here. Like they get half days on Fridays, and they have so many days off. But in every state's different,
Right.
so I don't know. But like, so I would say let's say school got out like the Thursday before, right? And it was an early release date, right? You've already probably
Mm-hmm.
got like your school pageants and all these other things that are happening like that week up, right? This might really be the only time they can fit it in. Like maybe people in Minnesota are leaving for Christmas, but I imagine if you're gonna leave as cold and as horrible as the weather can be, snow and ice, like if you're gonna leave, you're probably gonna leave like you're traveling on the 23rd or 24th from Minnesota seems like bad planning on your part because there's always a chance of a snowstorm when you're right
Right,
next
right.
to Canada in Minnesota, right? Or a horrible ice storm and your runway's freezing over. Like, so I imagine if you're leaving early enough. Like, if you're trying to leave Christmas Eve to fly somewhere else, A, where are you going from Minnesota? B, that's kind of a bad that's it's bad planning on your part because the slightest weather hits and now all of a sudden you're stuck till after Christmas. So I imagine maybe they did
So
like the advanced kids before that and the younger kids then.
right, maybe, yeah. Um so of course he tries to make it up to him. He's playing with him in his room and asking him what he wants for Christmas, and it's the Turbo Man toy, right? Batteries not included.
Would your
Um
parents have allowed you to just walk away like that and ignore them like that?
um I don't know. Uh Probably not, but also I I get it with I think he's kind of like at this point already in his feelings about it, so he's letting Jamie get away with that kind of stuff.
Now, okay,
He know he let him down.
I understand you can't have someone like as big as Arnold Schwarzenegger doing this, and also different time, different culture. Man, if I had tried to walk away from my parents like that, I might not be here to be having this conversation with you. Like
Yeah, well,
we'd be
yeah,
someone else
different time
entirely.
too, right?
Yeah, different time, different culture. I get it. I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying like, um, times have definitely changed since I was a child.
So this is like he talks to his wife afterwards, right? He's talking to Liz like, yeah, he wants the Turbo Man doll, and she's like, oh yeah, you got that right? Like, I asked you to get it like weeks ago, right? And the realization on his face, like, oh shit. So he knows that the next day, which is Christmas Eve, he has to go, and he's going obviously under the guise of going
Yes,
to
the go
work
off.
for for Jamie, right? And then he goes to his wife. He's like, "I'm picking up the DOLL or whatever," right? Um, and he's
So
off. He goes.
I gotta say, I gotta put a little of this on the wife as well. So
Yeah, like you didn't check that they're like
and
you
you
didn't
you
wrap the gift ahead of time. None of this
you
stuff.
know your spouse, okay, or you should know your spouse. They've been, I'd say they've been married at least a good 5 or 6 years in this time, possibly longer for
He's
purposes of
9,
this movie.
Jamie, so probably longer. Let's say 10 years.
Minimum 10 years. The minimum they've been together 10 years and married
Right,
9.5 or 9, somewhere in that range,
somewhere
right?
around there. Yeah.
Okay, you should know your spouse by this point, especially he's a workaholic. So let's say this is the 24th. Let's say December 1st, because this show looks like it's been on for a while, Power Man and everything, right? And so let's say December 1st, bare minimum. You asked him to pick up this Power Man doll for your son,
Turbo Man.
Turbo Man. In the 3 weeks, have you not asked him or double checked? Like, hey,
Yeah, the 23rd, you're like, "Hey, you got this, right?" It's like,
I'm glad they didn't go with the typical thing that you see with like a lot of these people who are executives and businessmen and salesmen where they have their secretary do everything for them, right?
Mhm.
But once again, like this is on you, Liz, too. Like, at no point did you say, "Hey, can we get a status on this doll? Like, do you have it? Do you not?" At no point did you think maybe I should go pick up this doll myself because I know my husband and he forgets
Yes.
everything. So, like, in order to salvage our marriage and our son's heart, so he's not doesn't have a broken heart come Christmas morning, let me go buy this doll. Worst case scenario, I can always return it after Christmas if need be.
Yeah, you could probably sold this on the street and got a bunch of money the way people were acting about this thing.
Two, I don't remember this. Did people not put up their Christmas trees until like Christmas Eve or something? Like we
This is a
see
thing that
later.
happens in movie This is something that happens in movies a lot, I feel like, that is not my experience. My mom is decorating for Christmas right now. I'm not there, obviously, but, like, she's almost done decorating.
Even as a kid,
I start putting it up around Black Friday, you know?
after Thanksgiving, even as a kid, I always remembered it
Yeah,
was after Thanksgiving. But later on we see with the star on the top, like he's just putting
yeah.
the star up on like Christmas Eve, and it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, man, it's kind of late to be trying to put stuff up at that point. Like that stuff's supposed to already been up.
Yeah, that is something that is, like I said, it happens a lot in movies, especially Christmas movies, where they're like, "Oh, we put the tree up like Christmas Eve," and they're like putting the final touches on stuff, and I'm like, "No, that stuff's done for a while. Christmas Eve, you should be pretty
Relaxing.
settled."
Yeah, you should be
Yeah,
doing your
yeah,
last minute stuff. Like, oh,
maybe
Billy,
last minute wrapping, whatever,
or like last
Christmas
minute
card,
small gifts of something new that came out. Oh, Billy
right,
wants these
right,
new whatever's. Let me see if I can find it. Whatever, whatever.
right. But yeah, so we're introduced to the character of Ted, the next door neighbor, played by the goddamn comedic genius of Phil Hartman, which is probably my favorite part of this movie. I just love all of his deliveries in this movie is just great. Like I don't know, I love Phil Hartman so much. It's a shame of what happened to him just a couple years later. This is like his last movie appearance that happened while he was alive, like the last movie that was released while he was alive.
He plays like a
But
sleazebag so
yeah,
well.
he does, and he's got that voice that is just, you can pick it out anywhere when you hear him on The Simpsons or whatever. He is. I grew up watching News Radio as well, the TV show, which was
Yeah,
great. He was great in that too. Also, kind of had Joe Rogan in it and Andy Dick and a whole bunch. It's a weird movie show to watch now. You're looking
You've
at
heard you've heard the story about Andy Dick getting punched out, right?
yes, yeah, yeah, good, right? Okay, so we get Phil Hartman here playing Ted, and you know, he mentions to Howard that he got Jamie, not Jamie, he got his son a um, Turbo Man
Turbo
doll
Man
weeks
doll.
ago. It's nestled
Un-
safely under a tree. So actually, Ted is doing this right, by the way. He's already got it. He's already got it wrapped. It's already underneath the tree. He's three
yeah,
for three here.
his tree's already up and ready. His house is decorated. Um, I will say one thing in this scene I thought was going to come into play later that didn't. When he brought up it was going to be icy and he should probably put tires on his change, I was like, okay, there's going to be some sort of weird
Oh, yeah.
traffic accident scene, but that never came into play.
No, well, his tires get removed instead later.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe it's good he didn't put anything on them. But yeah, so he goes off and he goes to all these stores, right? The first store we get to is the one that has the Chris Parnell that we were talking about. And we're waiting for the store to open. It's like 2 minutes before opening, right? Arnold, Howard cuts the line. He's like, just open it up. It's 2 minutes away. And I kind of agree with him here in a bit. Like, I've never done this stuff, but there should be a time where you're able to kind of like funnel people in a little earlier, especially with the weather. I don't know. Maybe
I
just
don't
don't have
know.
the register open yet. I don't know.
As someone who's worked retail, like,
I'm
nah,
sure, yeah.
you can't. To me, that's one of those, like, it's going to be bad, but now I was a firm believer in, hey, we don't open till 9, not opening, or like when I worked at Walmart, we don't open till whatever time. I'm not letting you in till that time. 2, when it's closing time, if you're not in the store before like that clock strikes whatever time, like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not coming in. So like to me, that's one of those like, nah, man. They say the customer's always right, and that is not true. This is one of those no, like you are not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's gonna be bad enough. It says 9 o'clock. Like I'll let you in at 9 o'clock and suck it up out there.
He gets in there. Well, as he's talking out there, he meets Myron Larrabee, a postal worker, and part of the reason my dad doesn't like this movie is because he's a postman who thinks that they're portrayed a little bad here with Myron. But I love Sinbad here.
I love this character.
He was so great. I love Myron.
I knew he was a
Yeah.
fairly large dude, but I didn't realize like he's bigger than Arnie here. Like I had to look it up. Sinbad is 6'4".
And that's partly why he was cast. I think there was somebody else. I think they wanted Joe Pesci or somebody,
Yeah, I
and then
saw, but he was too small. They said he was too small.
yeah, they wanted somebody
But
closer to stature than Arnold.
Danny DeVito, like he's he was in Twins and like Junior before this
Twins.
with Danny DeVito, who was much smaller. But
yeah, but I guess they wanted like somebody that could be like, I don't know, physical enough with Arnold in the sense of
yeah,
can kind
with
of
some stuff that's
keep
going
up
on
with
a
him a
little bit
bit.
later. Yeah,
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
that.
So you're not like Arnold's just like, why not just knock him over? Like, what are you doing? Like, at least this guy's a little taller. But they both get in there and they find out that the Turbo Man is sold out, right? And that they have Booster, they have the other characters, but they don't have that. And they're actually, I don't know if I would laugh in front of Arnold like this, but they are like laughing, and they're getting the rest of the customers to laugh at them. And I'm like, I don't know if a big guy like Arnold, I'm pulling this in front of him.
Man, Chris Parnell has that voice too, so he's
Yes, yeah.
ultra recognizable now, and that's where I was like, dude, is that really Chris Parnell from like the '90s? Like, and like I said, I looked it up. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I saw this is his first movie role. I was like, oh my god. The
Crazy.
the one thing I didn't like about Sinbad's character is this, like, okay, so we got to work Christmas Eve as mailman. It is what it is, and I actually enjoy that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't mind that so much, but dot dot dot. This dude screwed off on his entire mail route and didn't deliver a single thing. Like, now this could happen back then because they had no way of tracking you. And
Tracking, yeah. Now they have the tracker.
I've talked to people who did deliver during like the 80s and 90s before the scanners we have now that have like GPS and stuff in them where they can track you. Where they said like there were times where like they would like rush through their route and then they would, because they still got to get paid for 8 hours, and then they would go have a long lunch or go have a beer or go help their buddy on a route that's close to them because they were both going to like a Dodger game at like 5 o'clock or something, so they could both get off. But like this dude didn't deliver a single thing. In fact, he just threw everybody's mail and packages all over the place when he's running down the street with Arnie. Man, I was like, yo. But other than that, I've never resonated with a character as much as this guy, except for Newman. And I was like, yeah, I get it,
Yes.
man. Totally
Yeah.
get it.
Yep. So they end up going to all of these places, right? Like they go to the mall. He goes through. They have this like raffle, right? They have a Turbo Man, but you have to find the certain ball. The balls start rolling through everywhere. One of the like a little girl gets it, and Arnold starts chasing her.
This is the
And
bounciest goddamn ball in the history of mankind.
it is. It's just that one. Every other one has kind of stayed in the vicinity of that
Bounced
store,
3 or 4
and this one
times and
just
just
going
rolled
everywhere.
around. Yeah. This is an alien damn ball or something. This is the bounciest damn ball ever. And I didn't realize, like, you forget, especially someone like me, you've seen Arnold in mostly all these action films from the 80s and 90s, right? But until you see something like this and Kindergarten Cop, a few other things, like, the dude is really funny. And the
He
dude can do
is. Yeah.
comedic roles, like, really great as well. Like, I see him in something like this, and I'm like, man, this dude was really good. Also, I watched this on Amazon Prime. Maybe it's just that version, but the picture quality wasn't that great. I don't know if it's just how it was filmed,
Really?
if it was this trend. The picture was still kind of snowy. Like I could still see a lot of the film grain and stuff.
Oh yeah. That's what people like though. People like I was on the 4K subreddit, and they hate when the grain's removed. It's weird.
I'm just saying, like,
But yeah, I was
this
watching on
time,
Disney Plus. I saw the grain too, but I think it still looks good. I mean, better than my VHS when I used to watch it
I've
on there.
seen. Maybe they're not able to upscale it or get a better transfer. I don't know, but we've seen some other movies, especially that were older
Mm-hmm.
movies where it does, like movies from the 80s and stuff that didn't have as much grain that look a lot
Right,
better.
right, right.
So that's my thing.
Yeah.
Like I've seen older movies that look a lot better, as far as the transfer or the actual film quality.
Yeah, so then he, gets called a creep for chasing this little girl, and he ends up with Santa and the elf, right? And they say, "Hey, buddy, we got a whole bunch of these Turbo Mans." And they have like this almost hostage picture, right, of the Turbo Man doll with today's newspaper date. With the elf took the picture of it, and they bring him back to their little workshop or whatever. And this is where you said we have the wrestler, we have like the Santa fight, right? Him
This is
taking
like
on all these
Santa's
Santas.
village. This is crazy up
Yeah.
here.
But it's also that he gets the Turbo Man doll, and it is what in Spanish, and it's also easily falls apart. Like it is broken apart in the box, and he won't stand for this, Howard, and he ends
This
up
is
fighting all these Santas.
this is like a third-rate Turbo Man doll. I don't even know if it was really Turbo Man or something, but I don't know. That's like
It
we
was
have Turbo
counterfeit.
Man at home.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I ever did I ever tell you I got to play Santa one time?
I think so, but go ahead and tell it if you need to. I don't remember the
So,
full
well, I
stuff.
was working at Walmart at the time, and it was a super center, and well before 2020, this was 2016, 17, somewhere in that range. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sensibilities we have now. One, Walmart didn't want to lose the floor space of having like a sit down thing with Santa, right? And kids sitting on Santa's lap. Two, that's getting kind of creepy, right? Can't just have people sitting on a random Santa's lap, right? And they realized probably the liability that came with this. So they came up with a selfies with Santa thing, right? Plus, like everyone has their own little cell phone, right? So Santa could walk around the store and he'd have someone dressed up as a little elf who would hand out candy canes. And everyone has a cell phone and a camera and they can take pictures with kids and stuff, right? Cool. And I'm a rather rotund individual, right? And I was in charge of the front end at a super center. So I had to be people oriented. And I used to always enjoy like trying to talk to the kids or get my high fives and stuff. Because sometimes like a good or bad experience with your kid can make or break your shopping experience that day, right? Just as simple as far as like, kids are kids. Sometimes they're gonna have good days, bad days, and it may not always be the best. But if I can get the kid to smile and maybe calm things down, it might make what you're going through that day a little better. So they're like, hey, would you want to dress up as Santa for a shift? Sure, why not? That was one of the best and most rewarding experiences that I've ever had in my life. I get there, put on the costume, not the best costume, but it's close enough, right? And I get a pillow to put in so I can be a little more fluffy in the middle. And I got this girl with me. She's an elf. And she's got a little bellow, and she's got this whole thing of candy. And we're walking around the store, right? And they're announcing like every
Mm-hmm.
10 to 20 minutes that Santa's walking around the store, right? So people are actually actively looking for him. So for obviously the people who are watching this can see, but for the people who are listening to this who may not, I am a black man, right? Um, the kids never saw the color; they saw the character of Santa Claus. And one experience I'll never forget: this one little girl. I think she might have had some disabilities or something. I'm not sure, but I was walking up and I came down this aisle. And it was a grocery aisle, and walking up, and I see this little girl, long aisle at the end of the aisle. Her eyes get huge, right? Her like when they say like someone's eyes got the size of like dinner plates. Like I kind of get it. Like her eyes get huge. She takes like 2 steps and she realizes like, oh, I can't walk away from my mom. She starts tugging on like her mom's like shirt and her pants. And her mom looks at her and looks up, and her mom says, "Go ahead." This little girl almost tackled me, and she was so happy to see Santa. Now, before I did this, I did some research, and I've heard, people who do Santa on a regular basis, and people who do this like professionally, love it. But they also say at the same time, sometimes it's the worst. And it's not because of the kids, it's because of what they ask for or what they want. And it's because they ask for some horrible things to stop. I didn't have to experience that, but uh, I took pictures with like pets who, like, you know, it was adults and they had their dogs in the store, which they're not supposed to have their dog in the store, but we can't really stop it. And I took pictures with people's pets. I took pictures with a couple employees, but the kids just made it so worthwhile. And it's one of those, if I could do it again, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
That's great. I mean, like I can't wait to do like Santa stuff. Like we're going to get pictures with Santa the day after this episode releases. They're
Nice.
doing this at my work, where it's just $5, and they have one at the work building, and you just go there on the weekend, and you're with people that you work with. There's not a big line in a mall. Like it's going to be probably more personal. Like that's great.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
his
it's
first
not
time will be with like this nice enclosed area that I
it's
can,
not gonna
you
it's
know,
not gonna be like a Christmas story where it's like, come on, kid, hurry
yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. So really looking forward to all that because it is the best part of the year is Christmas. Um, so they go to this, yeah. So the cops enter, right, and he quickly grabs one of these like fake badges and just is able to say that he was working undercover. Flashes it real quick so nobody really second guesses it, and gets out of there. His car ends up broken down,
Well, because he
out of
runs out of
fuel.
gas. How do you run out of
Yeah,
gas?
I know, especially like, yeah, terrible management here. Um, he gets to his diner, calls home, and talks to Jamie, and ends up, yelling at him a bit. Um, and Jamie scolds him for not keeping promises. I got to rewind here because I think it was on an earlier phone call too that he called Jamie, and then or was trying to call Liz, and Phil Hartman Ted answers the phone.
Yeah,
This
when
is
his
my
wife was making
favorite part of
cookies.
the movie.
His wife was
She's
making
in the
cookies and sends
shower.
her upstairs. Yeah.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the movie. This part is so great, and what's funny is I was talking with my friend Ron, and I forget why, but we were talking about this movie on one of our podcasts recently, and I clipped this part. It's online. I'll have to find it again and share it with this. But he does a really good impersonation of Ted being like these cookies when he's
My
biting
wife's,
into them.
and I love the double
Put the cookie
entendre.
down
My wife's
now.
cookies. Yeah.
That whole exchange is my favorite. The way Arnold is delivering that. Oh, she's in the shower. Do you want me to go get her? And he's like, no.
Yeah.
Like,
No, you're not
no, I don't
going
want
up.
you to go in the shower.
You're not going up to see my wife in the shower. Too, like, and this is different time and different location, but like, he just walks into other people's houses. And I get in some neighborhoods, this can probably still happen where they don't necessarily lock their doors and they trust their neighbors a little bit more. Um, but yeah, like people are just walking freely in other people's houses. Like, yo,
I love this is like right after the phone call though. He's all like happy and stuff, but the kids are fighting in the background, and he just like you
he
see Ted
burns
snap a
himself
bit.
on
He's
the
like, hey, keep it
cookies.
down because he burns
Yeah.
himself. Yeah, keep it down in there. But yeah, that whole scene is my favorite scene in the movie. But anyway, back to we get the diner. We get more between Myron and Howard, where they're actually talking about what they wanted growing up, right? Like Myron has this great story about this toy that he wanted, and his mom wasn't able to get it for him. So that's why he really wants to do this for his son. And it's really just the story of two fathers that have been um trying their best, I guess, or like have maybe let some things slip and they're trying to make it up on this day.
Yeah.
And you know, unfortunately for them, only one of them can do it. But then it immediately spins back into another fight with them once they have like the radio station. Martin Mull's character is like, hey, if you can name every reindeer,
Yeah.
you get a Turbo Man doll.
And so two things. One, we just recently lost Martin Mull as well, not that long ago. So
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, he did
um,
pass.
two. Man, I miss a good diner. You don't see many diners anymore.
Yeah, we have one near us that just closed as well. It sucked because it was a place that my wife would always go to. Like her family always went to the diner, and it was
You
nice.
know, look, you find yourself a good diner. They're not going to have the best food in the world, right? Like, it's not going to be like 5-star cuisine. But
Hmm.
for some of your basic simple things, whether you want like a burger and some fries, or a patty melt and some fries, or a hot dog and fries, or a piece of pie, or something simple, right? Like you're gonna be able to get some good stuff, and it's gonna be a nice cozy place for you to sit down. Maybe you've taken a date or two there in the past, or maybe it's like you and your wife's place where it's just like your own little. Like, they don't have many good diners anymore, man, and it's a shame.
Yeah. So they run off to they rip the phone out of the thing while he's trying to call. So the diner chef is like, hey, the station's just
Seriously,
around the corner
it's 2 blocks away. Come on.
here. Yeah. Which, like, I get it. He wants them out of there, but it's also like these guys don't think that just like showing up to the station is like, why do you think that's going to work? But they run over there. They're like tapping on the glass, like, we know it. And Martin Mull's character is all like frightened, obviously. You got two men trying to get their way into your booth. And they find out that, hey, we don't have the Turbo Man doll here. You get a certificate, you're able to redeem it after the holidays, pretty
That is
much.
not what he said. That is not what he said.
And this is when the cops come. We get the same cop again here. This time he gets well, I guess earlier is when he got the coffee spilled on him, right? And then this time he now gets the uh bomb because um what's his name? Marvin, right? He pulls out a bomb, what he thinks is a bomb, because people send them in the mail. This is kind of also pre 9/11, so this was a little
Well,
bit more
so this ties back into the Unabomber, who was legitimately
yeah.
sending bombs in the mail at various times. Ted Kaczynski there. So yeah, like this was, it wasn't as big as they made it seem in this movie, but this was happening during that time.
Yeah.
People
Where
were
he just felt like
mailing,
any package could be a bomb, yeah.
and oh,
And
this
one
said,
turns out to be like the jewelry box, like the music box. Um and I just love his reaction when the bomb actually goes off. He's like, "This is a sick world we're living in." Cuz he's just bluffing, He thinks he's bluffing anyway.
oh yeah, and you know how I know that that cop's time is coming to an end? He's like, oh, I've been on the bomb. I was on the bomb squad for 10 years. The second time he does the bomb thing. I got this. I was on the
at
bomb squad
least
for 10 years.
at least he survived the bomb. I guess it wasn't a deadly bomb. A very 1990s comedy bomb.
That's a Daffy Duck bomb right there, where you just end up
Yeah,
with
with the
soot all over your
hair.
place. Yeah, it's a Looney Tunes bomb.
Yeah. I guess maybe they weren't Myron, by the way, not Marvin. I said Marvin. But I guess that's kind of their yeah, maybe they didn't make it well enough, I guess. Um so he gets back home. Um and he gets back home, he gets the car towed, right? He gets home. Ted's putting the star on the Christmas tree. He gets pissed. He remembers the line of like nestled safely under our tree, and he says, "All right, I'm gonna go in there and steal the Turbo Man doll that was for Johnny."
All right,
He ends up not being able to do it, but yeah,
you're not you.
it's his intention.
You're Arnie in this situation. When you see another man putting the star on top of your tree, let's not forget earlier in the movie, I can kind of understand this. He was putting Christmas lights up on his house.
Yes,
Maybe
he
his
came
wife
home
asked
and the
him for
lights were
that,
already
right?
done.
Once again, we're getting to like Christmas Eve. You don't have lights up by this point. Like, they're probably not going up, right? You don't.
Yeah.
You don't have outside of the house decorated. Like you remember when we watched Scrooge, and
Yes.
when they went back in the past, he's like, "It's the only house without lights." He hasn't put them yet. It's
Yeah.
Christmas Eve. Like, yeah, okay, I might be able to let the lights slide, right? Because that seems like one of those neighborhoods that takes pride in that stuff. And it looks like a neighborhood now that would
Right.
have an HOA where you'd probably get fined if you didn't have Christmas decorations up. But also, you get fined if you didn't take them down immediately on the 26th. But
yeah.
You see another man putting the star on top of your tree. Once again, you're not you. You're Arnie. Do you and old Phil Hartman there have to have some discussions that might not have some words involved in it?
Yeah. Put the star down now.
There might not even be some words, man. We might have to settle this
Throw some
outside.
fists. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie, like you try to look at my wife in the
Especially like
shower.
Ted tries to be like he's pulling this off to help you, but we know his real intention. He pulls a move on Liz at the parade. Like his real intention is to have Liz
Even before that,
for
he like
himself.
he tries to put his arm around her at some point,
Yeah. Yep.
and she's a little skeeved out by that, you know. But yeah, Arnie can see this.
Well,
Yeah,
because all the other women in the community love him, but
yeah.
that's not who he wants. He wants her. So it's like this, like I want what I can't have type of thing.
He
So he's
recorded
putting
it.
on all the moves.
He recorded the karate tournament for him, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, like yeah. we might have to throw some blows down. We're gonna throw some blows at some point. The last, like, yeah, you're putting the start up there. That's it. We gotta settle this.
But he gets caught as he's actually putting it back, so he wasn't actually going to follow through with it. But he gets caught with the, like the fire starts in the room. We have the carolers and like the deer, right? The reindeer that Ted's been renting or whatever.
Would you have been able
Which
to
he
walk
also
away
named
with the doll?
Ted.
Would you have been able to walk away with the doll
I
for your
don't
little
think so.
guy?
I am too empathetic with others, so I would be constantly wondering how like Johnny would feel.
Even
I
even
probably
if
wouldn't
this
be able to do it.
even if this dude was trying to put the moves on your wife,
Yes, because don't think I would want to blame the child for the sins of the father. So I would feel really bad about stealing from the son.
I might have to show his father there's consequences to all your actions, man.
There's consequences to your actions. I'm going to steal your kid's toy.
There's consequences and repercussions, man. I don't know. I look. I'm sure I'd have some guilt, and I might not be able to do it either because it is harming a child for no reason. The kid had nothing to do with this, right? Now, I'll be honest with you.
Right.
If they showed his son picking on Arnie's son at some point, if they showed like his son was a bully or something, that
Yeah,
doll's gone.
that's
That's
more
just got to
understandable.
go.
But
But
that kid's actually been pretty like
he's been
good
pretty chill with his.
friends.
Yeah, they're like best friends or
Yeah.
best buddies or something. Yeah. So I might not be able to, but I don't know, man. I might show you there's consequences to your actions. So it'd be a very big internal fight.
But so Ted says he'll take them to the Christmas parade. He's not able to go at this point, and
Well, no,
he starts drinking with the
his wife
reindeer.
asked her to take him.
Yes, because he doesn't. Yeah, she doesn't want Howard to go. And this is where I think Ted's like, yes, it's all coming to plan, right?
Your
It
muscles
won't
can't save
later.
you now.
But we get him drinking with the reindeer, which I think is funny too. He's like giving this beer to the reindeer. And we see him with like the picture that like Jamie drew. By the way, killer drawing for a kid. I love the way Arnold looks in this kid's
He had like little
drawing.
chest muscles. You could see he had chest muscles in the
Yeah,
drawing.
you can see the pecs or whatever. Yeah, it looked good.
I wonder if Arnold, when whoever drew that, Arnold was like, no, yeah, no. I need some pecs
Make it
in
bigger.
there.
Yeah, make it bigger. Now.
Do it now.
But so he decides he's gonna go to the parade, right, and try to
Salvage his family.
salvage the family. He ends up getting like running away from the cop because he ends up hurting the cop's bike or whatever at this time. This poor cop has gone through it in this day. I guess retribution for making Arnold spell the alphabet backwards or recite the alphabet backwards.
I've only heard one person ever be able to do that, and that was because it was something they had practiced and done on a regular basis, and it was on a TV show, and it was a show called High Noon that was on ESPN for a while with a guy named Pablo Torre and Bomani Jones. Bomani Jones actually did he bet him $100 that he could do it, and he actually did it live on air. Yeah, I've only heard one person be able to get further. He's the only person I've ever heard being able to get further past than like ZYX. That's kind of where I stopped. But he rolled
It's
through.
Funny. I was just listening to a podcast where the person was able to do it, and they did it in the tune of ABC, but they were like ZYXW, like whatever, and they did it in the beat of that, and they nailed it. I was like, damn, that's pretty good. I can't.
I still have to do the ABC song going forward half the time to try and get stuff in the right.
Yeah, you're like alphabetizing stuff, and you're like, wait, what's after E?
Yeah,
F. Yes. But he ends up getting put into the Turbo Man suit because the Turbo Man guy was running late, and
they don't tell him what
they
it
end
is.
up
They're
throwing him
just
in there.
like, yeah. They don't even
Yes.
tell him what it
Oh,
is.
I
He's
love
just
this
like,
guy too. I love this guy with the long hair and the glasses who's like the guy that he this because this is replacing the Turbo Man guy who got in an accident. And they're like,
because all the pressures weren't right and everything. Yeah. So basically, he's telling him, "Look, man, the suit malfunctioned before, but we fixed this shit. We're good now. Like we got this. Don't
yeah,
worry
yeah.
about it."
And I just love the guy's like when he does the line of uh about like how the actor is now reacting to stuff and he's like, it's a really good sign.
He's got
Just
brain.
like
He's got
this.
brain activity now. Yeah.
And he like fixes the glass. He's like, it's a really good sign. Like this guy does kills it in the role.
I figured out what was happening as soon as like the people grabbed him. They're like, "Are you the guy? Yeah, this is the guy. Come on!" And
Yes,
they,
yeah.
I figured out what was happening there, and I was like, "Oh, because they as they got to the parade, the one big thing they talked about was Turbo Man was going to be at the parade, right?"
Yes.
Now, I also got to say, no, Turbo Man is not the dude who ends the parade. I don't care what character it's going to be, whether
It's
it
gotta be
was
Santa, right?
Elmo during the Tickle Me Elmo phase, or a Cabbage Patch Doll, or I don't know what the kids are into nowadays, right? So I don't even want to say because it's not my thing. But
Fortnite or something.
whatever the big character is, yeah, no, he is not the dude who ends the parade. And if I'm the dude playing Santa, like weird, like I'm not moving. Like this sleigh, these reindeer, we're not moving. Like I am the finale. Like no, I'm the dude who everybody comes to see. Maybe this is ego, but like no, you don't upstage Santa.
We also get Myron, who knocked out the Dementor actor, and he takes over for him. So we kind of get a culmination of Dementor versus
Yeah, I saw that coming
Turbo Man,
too.
but
Where
it's Myron. Yeah, because you see like the tied up guy, right? And you don't see who's playing him yet, but
you see just
it
like a
should be
fist coming,
obvious, right?
like knock him out or whatever. Like
Yeah. But yeah, so it's the Turbo Man here. We have Ted pulling the move on Liz. She like hits him with the soup can or the thermos
you
thing,
know what I
right? Like
thought he was gonna see? Like okay,
them like
so
forcing himself on her.
no, kind of. So if this movie were done in modern times, right? Because they're in the front seat of their Jeep or whatever vehicle he's driving, right? Kids are gone. He puts his arm around her and he grabs her close. And he's at first she's on his shoulder, right? I
Okay, yeah.
thought Arnie was gonna run up and see where maybe he grabbed her or something, and like somehow her head ends up in his lap, and like he sees
Oh,
where she's
jeez.
coming up out of his lap. I think if this movie is done in modern times, that's the
Could
image
be
that Arnie sees, right?
PG
As he's
13.
running up. You know, you can still say a lot without saying a lot. Like, I don't know if that would make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
past the censors, but I've seen some other weird stuff that makes it past censors, right? Because
Right, right.
kids don't necessarily understand it, but the adults do. That may be on the border. I don't know, right? But
Yeah.
I thought that maybe that's just my modern sensibilities. I thought that's the direction it was going. And I'm like, oh, if he sees that, he's got to destroy Phil Hartman. Like he's gotta mess Ted up. But it never got to that point. So
Yeah, thankfully not. She sticks up for herself. She bashes them and
rightfully
leaves
so.
and goes to find the kids. And, he realizes he's Turbo Man now and he is, gets to pick one lucky kid from the crowd and he points at his son and says Jamie, and you just get Jamie being like, he knows my name, which I thought was a really cool scene. But he comes up there, we get Dementor coming in to try to steal the doll, and they're going off choreography now, and people are like, is that part of the script, right? And
This is so
they're
awesome.
yeah, but ends up with Jamie running away. He starts climbing up the facade of a tree, up in the thing, and Myron's chasing him, and he has to use his jetpack. Howard does, and ends up saving his son as he's falling. And you get the reveal. you know, that it's him,
How did his
and
wife not recognize him?
or when they're talking and like he's using his accent, his
I,
Austrian accent.
I get the kid may not be able to recognize him because, like I said with the
Yes.
Santa thing, right? The kid is more
Yes.
focused
Yeah.
on the character.
Yeah.
I will, I will not knock that. I 100% can get behind that. The kid may not see that it's his dad, right? That's just like how in The Simpsons initially they wanted Homer to be like actually be Krusty, but Bart didn't recognize him because if you look, they
Oh
have the
yeah.
same face and
Yeah.
everything. But then they never got around. They changed it and realized it wasn't going to work. But I get it. His son's not going to recognize it. Like, okay, I can't imagine there's many 6'2" Austrian dudes with muscles in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
That knows your kid's name at the front of the thing, like Jamie.
So with an accent. So how his wife was
Right.
not able to be like, dude, how'd you get in the costume? Like that was a little that was almost a bridge too far for me. Like you can't
My favorite
recognize
thing
it.
with Rita Wilson's acting in this though is when he takes off the thing, she's like Howard, and then she looks him up and down. She's like Howard.
Oh, look, I was like, oh,
He's keeping
there,
that suit. He's
yeah, there's
making it
gonna be
home.
some, there's gonna be some role playing going on there. Like we know what their next private time is gonna entail. I was like, oh my god.
Save me, Turbo Man. But yeah, so he ends up giving the toy to Myron to give to his son because he says I have the real Turbo Man at home,
Yeah, no,
and
that's not happening.
uh
The what I just went through
no,
today to get this damn toy.
after I just spent a day in hell, man, to get you this toy.
Had to knock out a
Um,
literal giant Santa. Nah,
and then this was, that was pretty much the movie. We do have the end credit scene, which
I'm
did you
glad you
watch that? Did
told
you
me
remember?
because otherwise, because it comes all the way at the very end of the credits, I would have missed it. I
Literally
would
post
never have
credit,
known.
yeah.
I would never have known.
I think I didn't know for the longest time. I think I've only watched it recently because I like would just end at credits. I was a kid. Oh, that's it.
Yeah,
Done.
this is
Rewind,
before
watch it again or whatever.
this is before Marvel like ruined our brains.
Trained you. Yeah. And this scene kills me now because it is like a perfect hook for like a sequel if you wanted to. But it's just this fun little scene of like, man, if you did all of that for Jamie, I can't wait to see what you got me for Christmas. And the same like pushing the camera to Howard's face of like, oh shit.
And it's that night on Christmas Eve, so there's nothing open.
Yeah, there's nothing to do now.
Or
He's
or there
screwed.
might be something open, but it's gonna be crazy ridiculously expensive. Like I
Yeah,
remember,
yeah.
like I said, when I worked at Walmart, when I worked at the grocery store one in Panorama City, smaller place, I think we closed at like 11 o'clock, right? I would remember a few times seeing some random dude come in. It was a different guy all the time, but some random dude come in who was like picking up some flowers and like a card or something and like a little teddy bear. And it was like either he forgot someone's birthday or like he was in trouble and he was trying to get his way back in the house for the night. But like I would love to be like a pawn, like a 24-hour pawn shop or an all night jeweler at that point, because which I don't even think they have all night jewelers, but I might I might be the kind of dude who would have like right security. This is capitalism, baby, and I might be a jewelry store who might stay open late on Christmas Eve because there's always going to be one or two people who forget, and then you're mine. Like, oh, this ring was $900. 1750.
So this movie, I alluded to it at the beginning. It is my favorite of the Christmas movies. It is one that I started watching as a kid. I watch it every year, usually with my mom, except for like since I moved out, watch it more with my wife now. And my son was actually watching this with us, and he was pretty intently watching at 4 months old. He was watching bits and pieces of it, staring at the TV. But let's talk about the critical reaction to it. So 20% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it's only 46 reviews. Not as many I guess reviews were, I don't know, maybe they had trouble finding some of those older reviews, because I would feel like there'd been more newspapers that would have given reviews back
Yeah,
then, but
I imagine there would have been
uh
because
probably
like
because it was
every
pre like big internet, they couldn't
dawn, it
like
was like at the
maybe
dawn of
have
the
like
internet at that point.
archives.
So
Yeah, so maybe it just wasn't at like, maybe there's some out there that would boost or lower the score even more, but um 41% on the popcorn meter. The IMDb is at 5.7, and I didn't see a Metascore or anything, so I don't know if it's on there, uh, but yeah. So that is
you
There
know
is a
that
sequel with Larry the Cable Guy, which is unrelated, and apparently I was just reading the synopsis. It sounds really
vaguely
bad, but
similar.
whatever.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, yeah, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole.
No, because I think what really sells me on this movie, look, there's some over the top stuff. There's like, whatever. There's some stuff that I don't like in this movie, but I think what really sells it onto me is the charm of Schwarzenegger, the charm of Sinbad, and their interactions. Some of the side characters, like Martin Mull's character, I really enjoy. There's Chris Parnell's, which I always liked, those two people laughing. One of the little kids actually that's in the toy shop with the car, the electric car thing that he takes the handle of the hit to get Myron, is the guy Hero from Heroes. If you ever watched that show, he was one of the Japanese American, or I think he was just Japanese in that show, but he was Hero, and he was the
Oh, the
time
one from
traveler in
yeah, the
Heroes.
one from Japan.
Yeah, yeah, he was the little kid that was driving the car thing that he like takes the handle for him and like gets the car to trip up Myron. Um, I think that was one of his first roles. But like, there's just that kind of stuff. I like Jake Lloyd. I know, like, whatever. I like Phantom Menace. I like Jingle All The Way. Uh, and I think Rita Wilson's really good in it. Phil Hartman's really good in it. Like, I think the cast is outstanding. There's some parts in the script that are a little lackluster. I'm not too big on the Santa stuff, like in the warehouse. That's kind of where it usually lulls for me. But other than that, I really enjoy this, and I think this time it actually flew by the most when I was watching it. It just seems like it goes from one thing to the next for him to get to, and it moves pretty briskly.
You know they actually did make some Turbo Man stuff for the movie, right?
Yeah, they did back then. But you know what? I also got, my wife got me this for Christmas one year. I have Howard as Turbo Man Funko Pop that just
Nice.
came out a few years ago. So I got that for Christmas one year, and I usually put it up for Christmas decoration as well. Um, okay, if I was going to give my rating before I give you your rating here, or you give us your rating, nostalgia glasses on. This is 5 out of 5 for me. Nostalgia glasses off. I still really enjoy it. Probably 3 out of 5 for me. It's just, it's a cozy movie for me.
So obviously never seen this until last night, and I put it on. Um, is this? I don't know. Is this one that gets played on like a lot of cable channels during the holidays? Obviously, I know you have like the
Yeah, they used to
24
put it on
hours of a
like
Christmas story on TNT or whatever, but
ABC. It used to be on ABC Family a lot,
um,
on like the 25 Days of Christmas or whatever they have.
yeah, I was gonna say I can imagine this. Obviously, I don't think it's up to the level of a Christmas story where you're gonna get a 24-hour marathon of it, but I could see it
Mm-hmm,
playing a
mm-hmm.
few times during the holiday season. Um, I don't know why I never watched this movie before. Did you see this when it was in theaters, or did you see this early on, or no?
No, I had it on VHS though, so I probably had it like the year after, right? Because like back then,
97.
a movie would come out in theaters in like '96,
Yeah,
and like the VHS would take a year. They would put it out like the next Christmas time, like November. They'd be like,
yeah.
"Here's the movies." So I think it was that's when I got it. I'm pretty sure, and I had it on VHS. Then we got it on DVD, and now I have it on Blu-ray.
This was a really enjoyable experience. I don't know if it was just because at the time maybe I didn't want to see. Well, part of it is like I'm not going to go to. can't really go to like a family movie or something by myself. Like I think I've talked to you about this before. Like kids or
Mhm.
family movies as a single guy gets into a weird territory where um maybe not so much family movies, but especially kids movies or movies that may be meant more for children. As a single guy, if you go, you can get looked at in a weird way. I
Right.
experienced this when I went to school and we were trying to do photography projects and we were at this museum. We were someplace. I think we were at a museum. School came in, and we were taking pictures of the exhibits and stuff. And I stopped because there were kids there, right? And I had some words with the teacher I had because she was like, "Well, you can keep going." And I'm like, "Look, it's she. It was a woman. It was a woman teacher." And I'm like, "It's a little different. Like you can maybe take pictures of the kids separate or in the frame of the art and the stuff that we're looking at, and people aren't going to object to it as much with you. With me as a male and as a black male, if I'm taking pictures and there's children in those photos, people
Mhm.
are going to get weirded out and freaked out because they're going to think like it's for nefarious purposes."
Right.
She's, "Oh, you're overreacting." About a year later, I had the same moment for a different class. A couple of the same other people in the same class. And a guy, one of the same people, was talked about how he did something at a park and he almost got into a big fight and like a mob mentality. And I told her like this is how mobs start up and this is how like
Yeah.
and I'm like I can understand why parents would be that upset about it. Like I'm not saying they're wrong. So like in order to just not put myself in that situation, I'm just not going to do it. And about a year later, different class, like I said, different person, he tells us the story. He was doing something and he was taking pictures of kids and he almost got in this big mob fight. And she was like, "Oh man, it's And I was like, I was like, no, 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 you don't get to say that now. I was like, this is the same thing a year ago you said I should have kept doing. And I was like, this is what I told you was going to happen. Like as
Mhm.
a guy, this is something I don't have the ability to do. And I acknowledge that. So like that's why I removed myself from that situation. "Well, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal." I'm like, no, like I tried to tell you, like this is something I would experience. Say all that to say, like I that's probably part of the reason why I never saw this in the theater. Um, seeing some movies in the theater like that as a guy will weird some people out, and I think rightfully so. Um, and then I just never got around to it. Like I'm not gonna watch a Christmas movie in like March or April.
Right.
So like I'm not gonna look it up on the old streaming services like April 17th. It's like, oh, what movie am I gonna watch today? Oh, let's watch Jingle All the Way. So I'm only gonna watch it like during certain times of the year, and then kind of have my own little group of movies that I watch, right? But man, I should have watched this movie before. This really was an enjoyable movie. I love the characters. I love the writing. I love Sinbad in general. Um, I still say maybe I can understand now because he's coming back from a stroke, so I don't think he can act too much anymore. But I don't see why they never made that Kazam movie that people swear up and down he made.
Yeah.
Like in the last like 10 to 15 years, like I don't know why they didn't capitalize on that and actually make the movie. Like that could have
That'd be
been
funny.
like what just like actually make it. Like why wasn't that actually made like in 2013 or something where it was like people swore up and down this movie was real. Maybe executives just never wanted to pull the put the green light on it, but like he's a great comedic actor, and I think he could
Mhm.
have done great things with that. So I give it a 4 out of 5. A joyous holiday treat. I can understand why people enjoy it. I might
Awesome.
add it to my holiday rotation. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm amazed that like I was just reading a review for Jingle All the Way 2 with Larry David, and people were saying it's awful, and they're not Larry
Larry
David,
the Cable Guy.
Larry
Yeah.
the Cable Guy, Larry David. That'd be really great. Um, but they're like I would still rather this one than the Schwarzenegger version. I was like, "What are you
What?
smoking?" Like it sounds even more over the top. It's like his ex-wife's husband starts like sending a spy on Larry the Cable Guy, see what he's doing and why he's trying to go after this. It seems so convoluted. I'm like, this is so simple. Just go find a toy. You can't, and it continues to escalate, and
You could
continues to
remake this
escalate.
movie every couple years with like a newer toy and
Yeah,
more shenanigans.
yeah,
Have you know the Comedy Central roast, right?
yeah, yeah,
You know they did one for Larry the Cable Guy a while back, right?
yeah. I think so. I haven't
Okay.
seen it though.
If you get a chance, Google Greg Giraldo, Larry the Cable Guy roast. Because Greg
Hmm.
Giraldo was the stand up comedian. He had like a sitcom pilot or two, and he never, like his pilots never got picked up, right? And well, I think he had he might have had one show that went like 5 or 6 episodes before it got canceled. It didn't last long or something. A lot of other comedians really loved Greg Giraldo. He was, and when I listen to stand up comedy stuff comes on, he's pretty funny. He's hilarious. He was a hilarious guy. He has since passed away. His addictions got the best of him, unfortunately. He's one of those comedians who had a lot of trouble with substance abuse and everything. And he was so good. He was a mainstay at a lot of these Comedy Central roasts for a long time. This one broke him, and he even said it during this, and like, so he's roasting Larry the Cable Guy, and there's some of it that you can tell is obviously done for the roast, but some of it is from a place of like pure, like, I can't, because this was also at the height of like the blue collar comedy tour and Jeff Foxworthy, You Might Be a Redneck, like, so this was during that time where like that was a really big comedy tour, and Larry the Cable Guy, Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall
Right.
were like really like selling out arenas all over the place. And like this really broke him. Like you could tell he's like when this starts going, you could tell he snapped, and he's like, I don't get it. Like I can't describe it to you without spoiling it, and I can't describe it to you and do it proper justice. But you can just tell he's really befuddled by like, how is this happening? And it's probably one of the better roast performances I've seen in a while.
I'll have to look at it. Okay, so what are we watching next time?
Okay, I have two movies in mind.
All right.
Both are streaming right now. So part of me wants to go with a comedy because I just did an action movie,
Mm-hmm.
my last pick. But part of me wants to go with that action movie because it can tie in with this one. So I will give you a choice. Would you
Ooh.
rather go comedy or action?
Let's go action because we just had comedy with Jingle All The Way. So let's go with action.
Okay. So since we are going to go with action, give me one second. I hate this. Why does this? Ah. Okay. We're gonna stick with Arnold.
He will break the record right now. This will be the 5th Arnold movie.
This is we're gonna go back to 1994. You are gonna be able to jump on Hulu and or Disney Plus.
Mm.
We're gonna watch True Lies.
All right. I've heard lots of good things.
This stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Tom Arnold, Bill Paxton, a young Eliza Dushku,
Ooh.
who, side note, do you know what she's doing nowadays?
No, what is she doing?
She has completely left Hollywood. She is a therapist in Boston.
Oh, really?
Um,
I think I saw that article, but I didn't know who they were talking about. Like I
she
saw a
yeah she
headline like Buffy star.
yeah she there was she had some really bad experiences on one of the sets that she was on, um, with some sexual assault
Yes.
allegations and things.
Yep.
And I think that convinced her she no longer wanted to be in Hollywood. She has a master's degree, and she in the Boston area. She's a therapist.
That's cool.
So that's fantastic. And a longtime crush of mine, Tia Carrera,
All
uh,
right.
from Wayne's World. Basically, Arnold plays Harry Tasker, who is a spy, but his family does not know that he works for a top secret spy organization.
Mm.
Um, Tom Arnold is his partner. They are like, like huge spies. They do lots of spy stuff in the Washington D.C. area, and Helen, his wife, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, um, she's getting bored in their marriage, and this kind of follows along the same lines of he's a workaholic, but in a different case because like he's trying to save the world, so he can't really put stuff off when you're trying to save the world.
Right. He's not selling mattresses.
Yeah. So, but actually, I think he is like a salesman or something, as his quote unquote day job. Uh, so his wife begins a liaison with a individual who tells her that he is a spy, played by Bill Paxton. Um, and then shenanigans will ensue. That's all I want to. That's all I want to give away on that one. And then the
right.
fate of the world does rest in Arnold and Jamie Lee Curtis's hands.
All righty. Sounds interesting. So I'm going to call this the month of Arnold. We only release 2 episodes a month, and both of them are Schwarzenegger. So this is a month of Arnold here. So there you go. Looking forward to it. I've heard good things. I figured, I saw people talking about it recently, and I was like, I should give it a watch. But I was like, I know Casey likes this movie. He's probably going to pick it sometime soon. So I held out.
There's a couple movies I have on my list too that I've wanted to watch, and it's the same thing. It's like I know Jordan is going to want me to watch this at some point, so I'm going to hold off because I don't want to take that away from him.
Right.
Like part of the joy of this podcast is seeing someone else get to experience something you enjoy.
Right.
Now, whether they like it or not, like not everybody's going to like everything, and I get that. But seeing someone else experience something for the first time and getting to hear their thoughts and experiences on it is part of one of the reasons I really love doing this show.
Yeah, that's the fun of it, right? Is getting to share what we love with our friends. And I hope people listening as well are enjoying our first times discussing some of this stuff, or watching these, and maybe it's their first time, or maybe it's a favorite of theirs and they want to hear our thoughts on them. But True Lies, next 2
Next
weeks from now.
time. Yeah,
Next time, right before Christmas. So then we'll be back for early January, and I'll have that pick after we discuss True Lies. So I'm really looking forward to it. All of our social medias are in the links in the description of the video, or the links in the show notes. Check those out. Have a great rest of your 2 weeks, and we'll catch you next time.